welcome. Time now to take a look at what the budget has in store for you. What are some of the key highlights of the budget, which many have termed as a growth-oriented budget, for which the finance minister has decided to sacrifice a bit on the fiscal consolidation path, but instead go ahead and give infrastructure the much-needed boost, which will obviously help in propelling the economy further and give a boost to the economy. So those are some of the highlights there. Of course, the other big issue that has come up in the budget is the law on black money, which has led to some sharp reactions coming in, both politically as well as from corporate India. What does it mean overall for the tax environment? Corporate India has seen its tax rate come down from 30% to 25% over the next 4 years. And GAR, which was really seen as one major tax trouble in many ways, has been deferred. That really did bolster sentiment earlier in the day when that announcement had come through. So that's the overall big picture of the economy, a boost to growth, infrastructure spending, and of course plenty of other small initiatives that he has announced which will have a ripple effect on the economy. Joining me here now at the CIR studio, Mukesh Butani, Chairman, BMR Advisors, and Vivek Mehra, ED of PwC. Mr. Mehra, if I could come to you first on the big picture of the budget. Can we term it as a budget which is growth-oriented? Does it have the stamp of Narendra Modi in many ways?
No, definitely you would call this a growth-oriented budget. It's very well balanced between the have-nots and growth, that is industry. And I would definitely say yes, it has done a lot, and it has done a lot in detail. There's a roadmap for the future and also looked at certain aspects where growth could become, for example, PPPs, infrastructure sector. I think a lot has been done on the infrastructure sector. So absolutely growth-oriented, yes. Growth-oriented
budget. Mr. Butani, there are some analysts and commentators who are saying the fireworks were missing. Where was the big bang in this budget? This was the one budget everyone was waiting for, but what happened? Why didn't he do something bold in the budget? But his response, of course, in that press conference just a short while back was, name that big bang reform and I will do it. But he says whenever I ask people, they don't have answers. So do you think that, as the chief economic advisor had said, that this is not really, we're not in a crisis situation that we need that big bang reform, but incrementally he's done whatever he could to deliver a good budget?
So I think if you have to pick up a leaf from what the economic advisor said in the economic survey, he mentioned this term called cautious reforms. And he also said that big bang things are required when there is a crisis kind of situation, and we clearly are not in the crisis situation. So I think they really did stick to the larger theme, growth-oriented, please everyone, and there is something for everyone in the budget. To the point that you made earlier on corporate tax, just a slight correction. He's not said that he is legislating 25% corporate tax rate. He said he will do so. So as it stands, the corporate tax rate of 30% remains unchanged. He said he will do that starting the next fiscal year over a 3-year period, but it's predicated on a very important condition, which is that his effective tax rate, which is currently stands at 23%, will steadily go up, which means that over a 3-year period, he's going to look at a fairly robust time-bound program to phase out all forms of tax exemptions, whether they are area-based or whether they are locational based or whether they are industry based. So I think that's really, in my view, the first big announcement.
Can I just add one thing here?
Sure.
Actually, corporate tax rates have gone up by 2%.
Could you explain the calculation to us?
Because wealth tax has been removed. Wealth tax was also payable, but very marginally by corporates. Now, if a corporate has more than 20 crore income, they would be liable to pay 2% extra. So the tax rate actually gone up to 32% for larger income ones.
So Vivek, is it the basic rate going from 30 to 32%, or it's the surcharge that has gone up?
I believe it's the basic rate, 2% on income.
Okay. 2% on income, so actually it goes up from 30 to 32%. So we'll try to get details of that. So what you're saying is that it's not such good news there for corporate India in terms of taxation.
Well, I think the underlying philosophy is that he's got whatever constraints he has from a fiscal deficit standpoint. He's kind of making a passionate plea to the corporate India, which is the rich corporate India, with profits about 10 crore, and to the rich Indians, income above 1 crore, and say, pay a little extra tax until the time I get my balance sheet in order.
By taxing the super rich in many ways has been an interesting aspect we always discuss during budgets, and it's been controversial as well in many ways. In this case, he's actually done a very smart thing. He's abolished wealth tax and he's gone ahead with that 2% taxing the super rich. Do you think that's been a smart move which will lead to additional revenues for the government? And do you think people would see that positively because wealth tax wasn't really generating very much for him?
See, I think abolishing wealth tax and saying that this tax on super rich is in lieu of wealth tax is a little bit of a tokenism, and let me explain to you why. You had wealth tax collections of only 1,000 crores. Now, I don't know what's the cost of administering the wealth tax law, but I would be surprised if it is not as much as what you collect. So I think it made a whole lot of logical and economic sense to take the wealth tax out. Now, he wanted to bring in something without saying he's taxing the super rich or bringing the super rich tax. I think he's saying pay little extra tax. I think the other aspect is that he's not talked about the inheritance law, which many people speculated that in his endeavor to widen the tax base, he may impose a levy of inheritance tax on the rich or the super rich who are inheriting wealth. So I think on an overall basis, you know, if he's garnering additional 9,000 crores through this route, I think it's a fairly fair proposition. The other interesting aspect is the tax collection projections that he has made. That's fairly benign, 10 to 11% for corporate tax and personal tax, and a little bit of tax buoyancy on the indirect tax, particularly on service tax and excise. Because
so is it a safe bet there?
It's a safe bet because he's going to get a leg up of 2% on service tax from 12 to 14%.
Right, so that's
he's pruned down the exemption list, and he's widened the tax base on the service tax.
Can I just mention
yes,
little issues on the service tax? While that gone up to 14, but you know, excise duty remains at 12.5, and therefore this differential will create more disputes.
Okay.
Otherwise, now a single contract will be divided between services and goods, and you'll try, the tax officer will say it's all services and you'll say it's all goods.
And many times you don't get that clear distinction between goods and services, because at the end of the day you will say that no, what I'm providing is a good and not a service, so why should I pay 14%? I'd rather stick to 12.5%.
Yeah.
And nowadays in any case that line gets blurred at times.
I think, you know, to answer Vivek's question, the guiding philosophy over here is that he took away, he raised the excise duty last year because he had given an exemption. We were just coming out of the stimulus package after 3 years. So I think he doesn't want a sudden increase in the excise duty. So he decided that let me keep the excise duty
but
down.
We want less disputes.
Sure.
So this will create more disputes.
Back to the entire
they should have been equal.
Yeah.
They will make both of them 13.
So you're saying that creates an unequal
platform. But then
platform.
that's also the reason he's kind of projected a 19% increase in excise duty and a 23% increase in service tax.
But we are talking disputes.
Okay, let's
reducing disputes.
Because you're saying that disputes and tax terrorism, those are some of the big issues that corporate India had raised also in many ways, which were dampeners in terms of investments. You know, whenever you spoke to anyone in industry, either on record or off the record, and they said, you know what, stable tax environment, fair tax environment, what happens right now is clear tax hunger, tax terrorism. Do you think enough has been done to address that issue?
Let's look back and see what all has he done. I think he's raised the transfer pricing limit for domestic transactions from 5 crores to 20 crores. Welcome. I think domestic transfer pricing should have been abolished actually, because transfer pricing has created huge number of disputes on the cross-border side and would create on the domestic side too. So that increase is welcome, but I wish it had been done away with completely.
Okay, quick word from both of you on the black money law, because we've got political reactions to that which we'll be just playing out, and interesting reactions. But the black money law, how does it really pan out? Is it going to lead to any ways of curbing the menace, or do you think it's just another law which has been brought in to take care of that political criticism that this government hasn't done enough?
The provisions are extremely draconian. And I think we are going back to those draconian days of FERA and enforcement directives, etc. It was a welcome thing that FERA moved into FEMA. There was no prosecution. So we are back to that. I'm concerned about the past. For the future, yes. For the past, I think there should be some kind of an amnesty so that we start on a clean slate.
Okay, amnesty scheme to bring back black money?
I'm not very sure. I mean, it's not visible. We need to see both the bills that are going to come into Parliament. One is on offshore black money and second is on the Benami transactions, to see that if all of these regulations are coming with a amnesty scheme. He's not used the word amnesty in the entire budget speech. But I think on the black money issue, what is guiding him is really the judicial activism and besides the political pressure that he has. So you have a SIT which is functioning under the Supreme Court, And I think they all are helpless in their endeavor. And given the promise that he made to the electorate, he needs to kind of now bring a law. Now, whether a draconian law, as Vivek classified, is going to create adequate fear in the minds of people such that they avoid offshore black money is something that we need to wait and see. But I think the important aspect over here is not just dealing with avoiding black money in the future, but what do you really do with cases in the past?
Right.
And I don't know whether VDIS is an answer, but I think we'll have to read the complete bill, which it seems will be separately introduced in the current session of the Parliament to see whether there is a VDIS accompanying the new law.
All right, so will there be a voluntary disclosure of income scheme which will accompany the black money law in order to push forward the entire issue of the past cases? And will the black money law be a deterrent in the future? Is it just a political move to take care of the criticism, or will it actually help in curbing the menace? Those are some of the questions we're trying to see. Time now for a quick break, but remember, we brought you tremendous political as well as corporate reactions through the day. We'll be playing out all those after the break. Stay tuned.